On today's show, I'm very excited to host Josh Jewett. He's an operating partner at New Road Capital Partners, which is an SEC-registered investment firm that is investing in growth equity and growth buyout opportunities across supply chain, logistics, retail, and consumer packaged goods sectors. As an experienced IT practitioner and corporate executive, Josh performs pre-investment due diligence and provides high-level strategic guidance, as well as brokers industry contacts for this portfolio of companies. Prior to his current role, Josh was the CIO at Family Dollar and Dollar Tree for 18 years. He transformed the IT function at the company and repeatedly deployed advanced technical solutions to enable growth and new business models. We have an amazing conversation today about all of these experiences, and I was most interested to learn about Josh's take on how to evaluate up-and-coming technology. Enjoy the show. Josh, welcome to the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so excited to chat and get your specific perspective on the retail industry as a whole, but I love all these different angles you come at it from because former CIO, now working the private equity space, you've seen retail from a ton of different angles, and I feel like also a ton of different price points, which is another way that retail can just change. Your buyers can change based on, what they're buying in certain periods and certain, times of their life. So let's chat about first your really longest experience in the CIO ecosystem at Family Dollar is 18 years serving that community and that organization. What was that experience like?
Well, it was a great place to be, and it's a great industry sector. I started in 2002 as CIO, and you're right, I was there 18 years until 2020. And I saw, when I joined Family Dollar, it had 4,800 and some odd stores. And after it was acquired by Dollar Tree in 2015, by the time I left there, the two combined businesses had about 16,000 stores in 48 states and 5 Canadian provinces. So it was an incredible growth story for, if you look at the long arc of that time. And marked by a fairly significant acquisition, one of the bigger retail acquisitions and certainly in recent memory, two $11 billion businesses coming together. And I was asked to be the CIO to lead the integration effort between the systems and application portfolios of the two environments. So, I could go on at length talking about what we did there over 18 years. It's a really compelling story in a lot of ways.
But talk to us a little bit about how the model is different on maybe lower entry price points, but the scalability being what really helps you see this ultimate financial success. And as you get good at scaling is when that margin also increases.
Yeah, great question. So both Family Dollar and Dollar Tree over the course of their histories have had ups and downs in terms of profitability and performance. And I certainly saw several chapters of that during my 18 years. And a lot of it is impacted pretty obviously by external macro factors, unemployment, inflation, et cetera. So there's a phase that both, Dollar Tree and Dollar General, the biggest competitor, are going through right now, which is pretty challenging in terms of the way inflation has impacted their gross margin in terms of the products that they source for the stores. Also, the cost of labor has gone up considerably, and it's difficult to get good labor. You asked about what's sort of unique and different about the business model. Having a lot of very small stores that are company owned and not franchises puts a lot of pressure on the business to be able to hire great people to run those stores. And they both, Dollar Tree and its biggest competitor, Dollar General, certainly have thousands of excellent store managers, but it's tough to be perfect everywhere. And so I think one of the bigger challenges that both the businesses run into is keeping great talent running the stores. Because if you're running a Family Dollar or Dollar Tree or a Dollar General, you're likely to see your boss maybe every couple of weeks. And you're sort of the king or the queen of that castle that you're running, responsible for all hiring decisions, all merchandising decisions, all customer service decisions. It's a really challenging role. And can lead to really great outcomes in good situations, but also really challenging outcomes in other situations. I think the other challenge that these businesses have is a very narrow SKU assortment, relatively speaking. They still have thousands of items, but that compares, if you compare that to grocery or department stores or something like that, they'll have hundreds of thousands of SKUs. And so that narrow set of SKUs allows them to actually drive up the volume and command a better cost structure and therefore a higher margin. So if you combine a low cost labor model, and I say that by not meaning there's just very few employees in the store, you combine that with low rent when you run a store that's, let's say, not right on the corner of First and Main, but somewhere else in town. And then you can combine that with sourcing and supply chain efficiencies. That's how both of these major companies have developed such huge and extensive networks and generated such historically great profits over time, and why the share price has stayed where it is, even despite the recent challenges both businesses have had.
Interesting. I'm sure a lot of your charter when you were there too was operational efficiency. How do we get store operations, constantly, singing in the same key, everybody's on the same page, consistent, managing turnover, things like that. What are some of the key areas leveraging, especially digital, that you were able to increase operational efficiency, especially as you guys from the Family Dollar to Dollar Tree jump increased so greatly in scale in such a rapid time? I'm sure technology was a big piece of that. So, what comes to mind is maybe the top two digital initiatives and digital wins that you had, which helped that to be a more successful outcome.
Yeah, I can think of two great examples. One was at Family Dollar. We made a decision along the way that we wanted to. Part of it was to reduce expenses, but part of it was also to improve the efficiency of the field workforce. We decided to move from laptops to iPads. Now that's a less expensive platform. We didn't just move the same content that we were sharing on the laptop with the district manager, which is the key player in the field operations organization, to the iPad. We chose to work with store operations to re-engineer that entire set of reports. And they used to get something like 40 to 50 reports a week. They would scan through these reports, they would identify exceptions, and then they'd pursue those exceptions. But with store operations help, we actually created a mobile app that ran on the iPad that delivered all this information on Sunday afternoon. We used the sort of an exception-based reporting paradigm to generate the content so that the field workforce could hit the ground running on Monday morning, knowing exactly the stores they needed to go to that needed their attention, whether it was for merchandise or employment or some other situation that needed their attention. And that was really a profound reengineering of not just the infrastructure to share information with the field, but also their ability to execute and act quickly on appropriate exceptions. So that's a sort of a great example where we reduced cost, we improved performance and efficiency, all through a great partnership with the folks that run the stores in the corporate office.
Was that application that was being run on the iPads your own IP as well, or were you operating like a POS and things that you licensed also through that iPad?
No, we developed it ourselves. My development team produced the application to run on the iPad, which was a new undertaking for us. We'd never been mobile developers before, and it was certainly a really big success. The second example, you asked for a couple of examples. The second example is also a mobile example, and it's also a field workforce example. We created a customer app that you can still find in the Android store or the Apple store, that you can download to your phone. The whole stepping off point for it was to enable digital coupons to be taken at POS. Now that's pretty standard for people to offer that kind of technology today to their customers. But in 2014, it was kind of new and different. It was certainly new in our sector of retail to offer that capability. And we previously had taken literally hundreds of thousands of paper coupons a week in our stores for branded merchandise. And through the introduction of this application, we didn't go to zero paper coupons, but we did reduce paper coupons. We also created the ability, it became a new revenue source, because if customers clipped these coupons to put in their digital wallet and then they affected them at point of sale, not only did we get reimbursed for the value of the coupon, we were also paid by the brand because the brand was getting insight into what customers were interested in and so forth. So we began, for a company that didn't have a loyalty program or anything like that at point of sale, we began to acquire first party data on our consumers, and we started to learn more about the consumer. So not only were we taking fewer paper coupons and accelerating the reimbursement on those coupons through digital, we were also getting insight into our customer shopping behavior that we had never gotten before. So we were able to discern even really basic things like, do they have kids? Do they have pets? Do they have both? Do they have neither? And what is that household buying, and where are they buying it? Because you go into the store as a customer, you declare yourself a point of sale in order to affect the coupons. And what we would do is we would pull into a data lake all of the transactions in that basket so that the marketing team could analyze and understand that household shopping behavior, and then begin to incentivize that household in more profitable ways for us, either with bigger baskets or pushing them to private, or at least try private label, and or expanding the frequency of their transactions in the store through bounce back coupons and incentives and so on and so forth. So that was really a transformational undertaking for the dollar store industry. It was not something that any of the other competitors were doing, and it was a way for us to once again increase efficiency, decrease cost, and improve sales and margin.
That's always been so fascinating and interesting to me, because especially previous generations, a lot of times, the man was the main provider. And so you would think they would also have interest in the spending and how that goes. But in a lot of cases, my family included, it was the woman who still went and made the financial decisions and did the shopping, and it was just approved by the man. So it's always crazy to me to see these data points of how much of our U.S. economy financial purchase decisions, especially on a consumer level, are being driven by a woman. It's always been an intriguing data point to me, and be interesting to see how that ebbs and flows as time goes on. And I'm sure it differs based on the SKU that is being purchased as well. So, very interesting. I'm curious, give us a little insight into behind closed doors at Family Dollar and Dollar Tree, that decision to build versus buy, because that can be rare, especially in a situation where margins are thin. They could be consistently thinning. It's an investment to build something, and a lot of times can have ongoing costs that were not even planned for. Whereas typically in a buy situation, at least you know what your SaaS commitment is going to be on a monthly basis. You don't get to own the IP, but at least there's a consistent understanding of what that financial hit is going to be. So what was that back and forth, and what did that look like for you guys to decide, hey, we're going to not only build one app, but multiple apps, and be really a company that is build first versus just buy?
Well, so there are a lot of factors that go into that decision. I would say first and foremost, if our need was fairly generic and common in the industry, there would be no reason for us to build that platform, right? So an accounts payable system, accounts receivable system, a payroll system. A number of these systems the needs are fairly consistent across retailers, regardless of the things that may be unique or different about their business. So those were clearly packaged decisions, and that even was true in terms of procurement, merchandise procurement, and replenishment allocation, where we were using systems that other large retailers were using. Where we chose to develop our own IP, if you will, or build it internally, was where we thought that there was either a unique strategic advantage or something that was sort of fundamentally different about the way we managed an area of our retail business. Product sourcing is a great example of that. The Dollar Tree team developed their own merchandise procurement system in order to deal directly with factories. They were sourcing items, that they wanted to sell at retail for $1 with a something like a 40 to 60% margin. So they would have to work with the factory iteratively to understand, okay, how do we specifically design a product that can be built and manufactured in large quantities at a low dollar amount that can then be shipped to the U.S. and landed with, and still get this kind of margin performance at point of sale. That was a very different challenge. There really weren't any other retailers that were procuring private label product in that way, and so the team, our team developed a product to do that. I mentioned the two other examples I mentioned earlier that were sort of digitally transformative initiatives. There could have very well been products in the marketplace to do that, but sometimes you find you get little more from the license fee than a toolkit, and you end up building anyway. So if you're gonna build it anyway, why pay a license fee for a toolkit when you can leverage commonly available open source tools to do that? And I would say this sort of the final dimension that might lead us down a path of developing internally would be the licensing models of ISVs sometimes didn't take into account the idiosyncrasies of our business. So, we were a business with very few SKUs in thousands of stores, and and we also had very few employees per store, although we had something like 180,000 employees at any given point in time active with the company. So licensing models that were either by store or by SKU or by employee sometimes didn't really work for us because it would have led the product to cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. And sometimes it's cheaper to build it yourself and do that. So handheld technology, mobile technology, things like that, we found we could build those, we could retain those skill sets internally and develop that, and drive great success for the business. So those are some of the factors that went into the decision of building versus buying technology platforms.
Well, the nice thing now, even there's so much access to low code, no code solutions that the cost of entry to be a builder of sorts is not near what it used to be, and truly having to build something from the ground up and having, very senior skilled actual, code writers and developers in the original sense of the word. It's just the industry has changed, and so many more things are open source and scalable and able to be put together with a less technical developer base, and still able to scale and be as impactful across the business as the ones that you built that back in the day, I'm sure, were like game changing. Very cool. And now I think in a lot of cases a consumer app, like you're talking about, a loyalty app, is table stakes. You
That's right.
have to have that whether you build it or buy it. Like that is something expected now from a buyer to be able to even want to engage with your brand.
Yeah. I would also say it's pretty tough to be um, innovative everywhere across your business model, right? I mean, because you're always stretched for resources and priorities and money. So you really have to pick your fights. And there's a lot of great innovation going on in the world. I see it every day now in my current role. And leveraging that kind of creativity and the amount of money that venture capital is putting into innovation. If you're a large scale enterprise, you can step back and look at all of that and pick the best options that are going to benefit your business, when it would be very expensive for you to retain that level of development talent across your entire application portfolio to be kind of on the cutting edge of innovation in all those different areas. It's just really not feasible for all but the largest scale enterprises to be able to do something like that. So leveraging the IP that's been funded through the venture capital community is a strategy most even multi-billion dollar retailers pursue because it's the most efficient way to get innovation into the enterprise.
As you get further involved from the technology perspective and really making sure like it was built with sound technical advice and guidance, what does that process look like? Is that typically a kind of quick situation, like you mentioned, where your background goes, oh, I can sniff this isn't great, time to move on? Or does it take a little bit more of a due diligence and a strategic process and approach that you come at each of these investment opportunities with?
Well, there's an initial screen of the technology just to kind of understand, is there really a product there? Is it, let's say, is it a SaaS solution, or is it a collection of, of utilities that isn't really packaged to be a SaaS solution that somebody could license? But before we actually decide to make the official investment, we go through something like a 60 to 90-day process to really thoroughly evaluate the technology, as well as the rest of the business. I mean, and this is a process that really every investment firm goes through, where they'll do structured due diligence on the investment. In my case, they have me, my team has me lead the IT assessment. So we're looking at the people, we're looking at their skill sets, we're looking at the way they develop and support product, we're looking at the architecture of the product, we're obviously looking at the security of their environment and of the product itself. So we try to do a thorough kind of 360-degree evaluation of the platform before we weigh in on the investment decision from our perspective. Counterparts of mine are doing other comparable evaluations of the firm for other dimensions of their business before we make an official investment decision.
Interesting. How much are you seeing is generative AI or going to be generative AI that is the game changer for these businesses and these investment opportunities that come to you? I know it's the buzz of all buzzwords at the moment, so I'm curious if most of these folks are coming to you saying, "Oh, well, this will be done by XYZ generative solutions."
Yeah, I mean, everybody's figured out a way to put AI somewhere in their marketing material or the name of the company or whatever. And so you do have to spend a little time trying to discern how mature a practitioner they really are with different flavors of AI. I would say there's a lot of good substance there, though. I mean, you asked specifically about generative AI, but there's a lot of value a retail enterprise can develop or derive from even earlier versions of AI that were not generative AI. So the best example, at least in my opinion, is video, analyzing large volumes of video. AI can do that and can do that well, whether that's customer heat mapping in the store, whether that's obviously looking for cash loss or inventory loss situations. It can also assess pretty quickly inventory availability on a planogram. So things like that, and then being able to look at thousands of hours of that and aggregate, roll up those statistics. That's not something a human can do, right? But AI can do that. Now, when you're talking about generative AI, where you're starting to see some early use cases are really in marketing, pricing, anywhere where a large volume of content has to be analyzed and results um, 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 either summarized or recommendations made, insights derived. These are areas where analysts within a large scale retail enterprise can use these solutions to produce different outcomes and better outcomes and use it really to assist them in the execution of their business to make them more efficient. So I think these are where you're seeing the use cases originally. I think it will be quite a few years before retailers trust generative AI enough to make hard and fast transactional pricing decisions dynamically, reassessing the price before a human looks at it. The same thing will be true with inventory positions, allocations, et cetera. I think there will be a considerable amount of time that people are going to want to look over the AI's shoulder and be sure they're really comfortable with these recommendations before they proceed. But there is no doubt that it's already making many roles within large scale retail enterprises more efficient.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the name of the game is efficiency, not replacement or it at all being in a situation where it's taking people's jobs or we're going to be more intelligent than people who have been retailers themselves for 20 plus years. But the folks that upskill on it quickly and adopt it and figure out the areas where it does fill gaps of their skill set or their just even capacity on a day-to-day basis to execute to help them scale themselves as an individual and as a individual contributor of sorts, then those folks will see massive returns and I think career growth even as they start to pioneer forward the industry as a whole. And I think the retailers that are making the right investments at the right times over a certain period of time will start to also be the ones leading the race. Kind of like the people that adopted things like Instagram and different other digital new things on the scene that ultimately have now become how a lot of people consume. The earlier they are to that game and understanding it and adopting it, then the more fruitful their business is going to be and the more product I think they'll be able to actually sell to their consumer base.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think opportunity there, and this is not a new story with technology, right? AI is the latest version of this. Is most analysts spend a considerable amount of their time just gathering data, normalizing the data, and putting it into a position where they can start to understand it. So and that doesn't matter whether you're a pricing analyst, a supply chain analyst, or a financial analyst in an enterprise, a retail enterprise. If the technology can reduce the cycle time associated with gathering data, normalizing data, and deriving insights from that data, that means that that person has more time to do something constructive with the output, and they can do more of that analysis and make more informed decision making subsequent to it. Right. So it is all about the efficiency, and I think that is where you'll see the biggest value derived from AI is really making a lot of these corporate functions more efficient and more timely in their decision making, and that will translate into profitability, reduced expenses. It'll touch the P&L in a lot of different ways of a retail enterprise.
Yeah. Let's say you were back in the seat today, CIO of, maybe one of your competitors or back at Family Dollar, Dollar Tree. Where do you think you tackle the business first with generative AI technology? Do you think it would be pricing, or are there other things that bubble up to quick wins using that technology and what we know of it today?
Yeah, it's so great question. I would probably go to things like pricing, inventory optimization. I would go toward digital content and curated experiences, personalized experiences for consumers that come in through the digital channel. I would look at customized offers that are tailored to specific individuals or personas. In an enterprise like ours, that where it would be difficult with 2 billion customers a year to really be all that personal. But you can certainly categorize your customers by way of persona and think about them in that way with generative AI. I would also look at accelerating processes around testing and learning, whether that be marketing programs, pricing, store formats. Um, you can run a lot of A/B testing now in AI, and AI can act like one of your customer personas and give you a high likelihood outcome of how that consumer is going to respond. And those are the types of things I think those are the areas I would go to initially with AI. I wouldn't be looking to replace large scale transactional systems. I'd be specifically looking at these corporate roles that could be made more efficient, that would drive financial performance, profitability, and greater customer engagement.
Super helpful. Love the insight. Now, Josh, I just have one final question is around principles. I'm curious to hear from you. What is the guiding principle that you've lived by to be successful in business?
Wow. So great question. I I think first and foremost, I guess the golden rule applies here, right? Like, let's treat others how you want to be treated. Be conscientious. Be responsive. Your first obligation as an employee on a team is to be helpful of others on your team, and treat others the way you'd want to be treated in a professional manner. I think that is probably number one. Number two is don't worry about so much about what comes next. Focus on doing the best possible job you can with the challenges that are in front of you right now, and over time, good things will happen. So don't concern yourself so much with what someone else is doing or where somebody else is going in their career. Focus on what you can control, what you can do really well on. And at least in my experience, good things happen over time.
Amazing. And you've had such a cool career yourself, Josh. So thanks for coming and sharing your background and your insight with us today. And we're excited for all that you're going to do next.
Oh, thanks again for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun.